Are you happy? That's a phrase that's uttered thousands of times every day. A simple yet sometimes extremely hard question to answer. What is happiness? How can it be obtained? And how does the trauma of our past play into that happiness? And how can we move on? All questions that tie into the main question at hand, and the key question tackled in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Hey, how you doing? And today we are talking about the newest film from Marvel Studios' Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Just off the top, I really enjoyed my time with this film. I believe the direction, performances, the horror elements, I think they all work extremely well. There are some things that I don't love about it, and I'm going to make a video in the future about those things, but for now, overall, I had a really good time with it. But the thing I love the most is the brilliant look at grief and the pursuit of happiness for our two main characters, Stephen Strange and Wanda Maximoff. I think this film is the ultimate culmination of their main character arcs. And no matter how many projects they take part in the future, which, according to Elizabeth Olsen and Benedict Cumberbatch, could be a pretty long list, they're never going to be the same. In order to fully break down the character arcs for our main heroes, I'm going to have to spoil the living out of this film. So this is your one and only spoiler warning. So you've been warned. As I said before, this film is a look at grief and the pursuit of happiness. And as we know, that seems to be the overarching theme of Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. The events of Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, they did a lot of damage to our heroes. And Phase 4 is becoming the ultimate sandbox to see how grief is affecting these larger-than-life characters. To be able to do these arcs justice, we're going to have to break them down individually. We're going to start with Stephen Strange. And when we first meet Strange, he's at top of the world. But he's also a cold, egotistical, and utter brash asshole. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is who he is. But that confidence is a lie. An illusion. Some might even call it magic. As it's been revealed, he's been living a life of fear and pain. And while we could see it at times, it never fully came to fruition until this film. The beauty of Multiverse of Madness is the exploration of Strange's grief, how he tries to compress it and throw it away, how that magic can become his happiness. But as we all know, that magic is all a lie. It's not real. At the beginning of the movie, we learn that Christine is getting married to someone not named Stephen Strange, and that Strange is alone. No love, no title of the Sorcerer Supreme, nothing. He's alone, and he's on his own. And he has to live with the thoughts and the grief. When talking with Christine, she asks him, "Are you happy?" To which Strange lies and responds with a yes. That is a lie. It's a lie he's been living since before we even met him in the original Doctor Strange film. In reality, he is suffering. He has an inability to relent to anyone because of that suffering. He always wants to be in control. This all has to do with a past that was revealed to us in this new entry. When he was a kid, he lost his sister when she fell through a hole in an ice lake. He couldn't save her, and he's carried that burden through the rest of his life. The grief consumed him to the point of mental manipulation. More magic, as you might call it. The common thing that links all of the variants of Strange that we meet in this film is the inability to hand over the knife to anyone else. The inability to relinquish control when his back is against the wall. He will do everything in his power to save everyone he can, unlike what he was able to do for his sister. He carries that burden and tries to suppress it. That mentality works until it doesn't. It can be damaging and even self-destructive in the line of work that Strange is in. The film actively challenges Strange to look beyond what's just happening in front of him. Try to relent, give up the knife, and look to his past and see what's actually wrong. The encounters with each new Strange and the reliving of these past events bring him more clarity of his grief, and also bring the necessary conversations that he needs to move on. But he's not completely whole until he confronts the other biggest heartbreak in his life, Christine. By the end of the movie, he's able to confess his feelings to Christine. While it might not be the Christine that we know from his universe, it's what he needed. It's the push that he needed and the closure that he needed to feel whole, to truly feel happy. I think the best thing to represent his entire arc of grief is his watch. While maybe a small detail, it spoke volumes to me. After his accident in the original Doctor Strange, Stephen has always worn the watch in its broken state, just like his mental state with the grief he's been carrying for his entire life. By the end of the movie, he's fixed the watch, much like he's been able to fix his mental state. He has clarity, and he feels fixed, just like the watch. Instead of having to answer the question of if he is happy, he's now asking others. Wanda, where do I even begin? I wanted to finish the video with Wanda because her grief cuts the deepest of anyone in the MCU. And that's why we're going to explore her sadness more than Stephen. Her grief is the driving force of action in this film, and as the antagonist, that is a big deal, because without this grief, we would not have her driving action. Wanda's been given the worst draw of anyone in the MCU. Loss has stained her life, whether it's her parents in Sokovia, Pietro in Avengers Age of Ultron, or Vision in Avengers Infinity War. I mean, we have to admit, she's been through the ringer. Pietro was her sidekick, her rock when becoming who she was, the dynamic duo she needed to feel safe. Vision was her everything, someone she could confide in and trust with the burden she bore from being a superhero. The two most important people in her life, gone. And that's how we got to the grief was explored a lot in WandaVision. We were able to see what Wanda had gone through her entire life. And we saw what happened and the aftermath of her losing the love of her life in Avengers Infinity War. You know, I personally believe that episode 8 of WandaVision is some of the best writing of Marvel TV to this point. A true exploration of Wanda and everything she had been through up to this point. She's not as complex as you might think. She's got a life full of pain and suffering, and she only wants a few simple things. She wants a normal life, with Vision and her boys. The hard truth for Wanda, though, is that that can't happen. As we see at the end of WandaVision, this fairy tale that she's been living is a lie. And it's hurting people. She has to make the tough call. Lose Vision again. Lose the boys that she's come to love. This time, for real, once and for all, she is completely and utterly alone. And that's where we find her in this film. Wanda's now desperate. She's ridden with grief and willing to do anything in her power to get the life she lived in Westview back. So this time, she turns to the Darkhold. Now, if you're not familiar with the Darkhold, it's a book that's filled with the most evil spells in the universe. And not only is it that, but the book corrupts everyone and everything it touches and turns them into their worst selves. And this time, that's Wanda. While WandaVision was an introduction of the grief, this movie is the exploration and the consequences of that grief and what the cost of happiness really is. Wanda goes off the rails, and she will do anything in her power to get her family back, no matter the cost. She's been manipulated and corrupted to the point of no return. You know, when someone tempts you with the perfect life you want, how much are you willing to lose to get that life? And what is your reaction when you find out that it's all a lie? When she finally has the opportunity for that life back, she's met with fear instead of love, and she's seen as a monster instead of a mother. It is at that point she learns that there are consequences to her actions. That happiness that she thought she would have has now turned into fear. She realizes that whatever she does, she will never be happy in that way, because what she created in Westview was all a lie. That in the end, it's never going to be able to happen for her. And that's what this film is trying to accomplish. The film is a look at grief. It's overcoming grief, both for Stephen and Wanda. The cost of happiness and the lies that we tell ourselves to be happy. For Stephen, he turned out okay. For Wanda, it's still to be determined. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is a film with the stakes and scale of the multiverse, but in reality, it's a story about loss, grief, and the pursuit of happiness. A film that tests our main characters to the brink and examines their suffering to the very end. The examination of both Strange and Wanda are relatively similar. It's a film about two people who are alone, having lost everything, and asked to take on the roles of heroes in a cold, cold world. These heroes are people too, and sometimes it's best to just stop and ask them, are you happy? Probably be surprised by the answer. And here we are again back in the chair. That's it, guys. I want to thank you all so much for taking the time, sitting down and watching my exploration of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and the look at grief that both Stephen and Wanda are going through in this film. I think it's very resounding. I really liked the arcs that these characters went on, and I really enjoy the exploration of grief here. We covered it in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, and Wanda through Westview and in WandaVision. That was a really big part of it, but we didn't really examine the consequences that much in that show. We experienced them here to the point where we finally get a conclusion to both those character arcs. Like I said, no matter what happens in the future, these characters are never going to be the same. And I hope and I pray that for them and the writing, they end up being happier. Because we all know, like I said in my last video, I say that the world sucks sometimes, and it is hard to always be happy. But if you persevere and you get through, in the end, you will find happiness. And I hope that you all find happiness in one way or another. I want to thank you all so much again for watching. It really does mean the absolute world. This is video essay number 2 that I'm doing, and I hope you all enjoyed. Go down below in the comments. Let me know what was your favorite part of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. What did you think of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? I really do appreciate you guys watching.